You are listening to the International Radio Report. Your reactions are much appreciated. Feel free to send them to radioreport@yahoo.com. That is, radioreport@yahoo.com. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody, to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. It is Sunday, July the 9th, 2023. We thank you for tuning in. My name's Sheldon. I am here with Jill, and we have Mickey with us from out in Sherwood Park, Alberta, joining us today. We'll be talking to him a little bit later. First off, though, as usual, how to get in touch with us. Our email address, radioreport@yahoo.com. Live streaming and archived. You can catch the show at ckut.ca. Our Facebook group, International Radio Report. We want to welcome a whole bunch of new members this week. We have joining us Robert from California, Mark from Ohio, Sean from here in Montreal, Andy, another Mark from the UK, Natalie all the way from the Czech Republic, and Thomas. They have all joined the Facebook group. You can do so as well. We have 926 members there. And we have our YouTube channel, which is really popular. It gives you an opportunity to go and listen to the show when it is convenient for you. And you can go back and listen to older shows there as well. Search for International Radio Report on YouTube, and you can subscribe and join the 855 subscribers that we have there. So we'll get right into things this week. Interesting to see some of the stuff that we talk about that is kind of unique to our program, getting a little bit of mainstream coverage this week. And we're going to do something a little different on the show. We normally do our halfway point to give you the solar conditions. Well, the story to kick off the show today actually talks about the sun and things going on there. So, Gilles, you'll get to start things off with the solar information.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a double punch of solar storms that could smash into Earth and spark widespread auroras this week. This is by Robert Lee, space.com. So while the U.S. celebrated Independence Day on July 4th, the sun held its own more powerful firework display. The stellar fireworks came in the form of two solar storms, or coronal mass ejections, that are partly directed at Earth and were observed by NASA's Solar and Heliospheric Observatory that orbits our star. CMEs can contain as much as 1 billion tons of plasma made up of charged particles and thus carry with them their own magnetic fields. NASA has projected that the massive ejection of ionized gas called plasma would impact Earth on Friday, July 7th, as we are recording actually. When the charged particles within CMEs strike the magnetic field of our planet, the magnetosphere, they can give rise to large disturbances called geomagnetic storms. These storms can, in turn, disrupt power and communications infrastructure here on the surface of Earth, in addition to affecting satellites, which could adversely influence services such as the Global Positioning System. So, as we are recording, this is when we're expecting something to happen. I know that we started off the day today with unsettled conditions. We're not at geomagnetic storm yet. It could happen, of course, later today. We also have an interesting sunspot that just appeared on the sun. A very big sunspot, one of the biggest sunspots yet. 3363 is now actually getting on the solar disk. It just rotated into view. And of course, as it will move across the surface, it will be more and more directed at Earth. And such a big sunspot can harbor a lot of energy for amazing solar flares. So, you know what? The best thing to do about all of this is to turn on a radio to listen to these conditions and see what they are like.
You have any idea what we might experience if something of this level does impact the Earth?
What happens most of the time is, first, the GPS system is one of those that is fragile for this because a big impact of a solar flare can actually make your GPS off by not just inches, but sometimes kilometers. So this has a huge impact between being on the road or with the cows somewhere in the field. And there's also the effect of the geomagnetic storm itself. Once it punches in our magnetosphere, what it does, it starts creating all of these currents of electricity. And they're talking about the polarity of the plasma because it's like a battery. There's a plus and a minus sign. There's a negative and a positive on these plasma clouds. And sometimes the way they hit the Earth, they can either kind of cancel each other or they can actually magnify this effect. And that can induce currents, for example, in the power grid. We know about this in 1989. We had a big blackout because of that. And because we have thousands of kilometers of wires going up to the Arctic Circle almost, the currents induced can cause damage to the transformers and all that in the power grid. And anything that has wires, so, telecommunications of all kinds, including the internet, which relies a lot on undersea cables, the effect could be pretty disastrous if we would be hit by something huge like the Carrington event in the 1850s.
All right, so keep your ears on. And if your lights start flickering, it might not be your local hydro company that you complain to. You can yell at the sun, but it's not going to listen. It does what it does. So, like I said at the beginning, it's interesting to see that the mainstream media has picked up on this. So, there are some people out there, obviously, in the media who have been intrigued by this, I guess, and decided, let's take a look at this and see what it's all about. So
this is Margie Barrett of Lansdale, Pennsylvania, listening to the International Radio Report every Sunday morning at 10:30 on TKUT 90.3 FM Montreal.
All right, we like to keep you up to date on just how well radio is doing out there, because we keep hearing these notices about how radio is passé and it's dying and it's going away and what have you. Well, we have another survey that's been done to report on. This comes via Radio Inc. Radio's reach still goes deep, says Nielsen. For those worried about radio's reach, 91% of all adults in the United States still hear AM and FM on at least a monthly basis, according to the Nielsen's Audio Today 2023 report. This rate puts radio over television, smartphones, and other audio platforms in terms of audience reach. The focus of this week's Cumulus Westwood One audio active blog: over-the-air radio is not only valuable for converting existing demand, but also for creating future demand by targeting broad audiences of all category buyers. This approach allows advertisers to familiarize potential consumers with their brands, creating a positive impression that may lead to future purchases. Procter & Gamble, for example, one of the largest advertisers in the country, has repeatedly recognized the power of AM and FM and has become America's largest radio advertiser. P&G's chief brand officer, Mark Pritchard, said radio is a powerful medium to reach and engage the consumers we serve. Nearly all people are potential consumers of our brands. We want to reach 100% of these potential consumers. Radio is a powerful way to reach those consumers with its tremendous breadth and availability. When done right, radio works because of its reach, effectiveness, and efficiency, exactly what P&G brands are looking for. Furthermore, AM and FM excels in reaching consumers on the path to purchase. The majority of over-the-air radio listening takes place outside the home, with 44% occurring inside the car. This makes a compelling medium for advertisers as consumers are closer to the point of purchase during their in-car listening sessions. So basically what the analysts of the companies are looking at here is if they're out on the road and they hear an ad and something attracts their attention, they're halfway to the store and they may just pop in and say, hey, I want one of those things. So these are big companies spending a lot of money on a technology and a medium that a lot of other people are saying people aren't using anymore. Well, this survey is proving that some big companies don't believe that, and the numbers are starting to prove that.
Procter & Gamble are capable of having a lot of statistics on what the ads and the revenue that these ads bring in from different platforms. So if they continue on the radio, it's because they know that the radio is a great place to do it.
And it's a way to reach masses too.
Yeah.
You know, in other platforms, people may have to purposely go there at a certain, you know, and it's not broad. It's broad to a certain extent, but not as broad as something that's just out there on the public airwaves that people may just, you know, be listening to in the car or what have you. So.
But apparently there's some people, they don't agree with that much. And it's the Consumer Technology Association, of course, campaigning against the AM mandate bill. This is by Randy J. Stein of Radio World. So the trade association representing the U.S. consumer technology industry is conducting a campaign against an AM radio mandate for cars. The Consumer Technology Association is running a Say No to the AM Radio Mandate campaign online, telling consumers that freedom of choice and technological progress are under threat from special interests in Washington. The proposed AM for Every Vehicle Act that is supported by broadcasters and many members of Congress would direct the National Highway Safety Administration to implement rules requiring car manufacturers to maintain terrestrial AM radio service. The National Association of Broadcasters has been conducting its own campaign in support. The CTA states in its ads, this outdated and counterproductive measure will stifle innovation and impose unnecessary costs on automakers, ultimately affecting consumers. We must voice our opposition to this mandate to protect consumer choice and allow the automotive industry to continue evolving. The association has been vocal against a mandate from the outset. Now the group asks consumers to contact their U.S. senators and representatives and urge them to oppose the mandate. By doing so, you'll be playing an essential role in advocating for a free market economy, consumer choice, and continued innovation in the automotive industry. The campaign includes a link to send an email to the appropriate member of Congress. The template reads, I write to oppose a proposed mandate to include AM radio in all new cars. As a resident of your state, I value progress, consumer preferences, and freedom of choice in the market. The proposed mandate is not needed and contradicts these values. We live in an age where technological advances are made at an unprecedented pace, providing consumers with many ways to consume audio content. Streaming services, satellite radio, and smartphone integration in cars have revolutionized our listening experiences. While AM radio offers important news, weather updates, and entertainment options, FM radio, streaming services, improved rural broadband, and wireless text alerts can effectively provide necessary information in emergencies. The prepared email continues, our vehicles have come a long way from the era of the Model T. Just as we have moved on from gramophones to a wide array of modern audio devices, we should allow the same progress in our vehicles. Washington should not dictate the design of our car entertainment systems. In May, CTA CEO Gary Shapiro co-signed a letter to the backers of the legislation expressing their opposition. The other signatories are the Alliance for Automotive Innovation, the Zero Emission Transportation Association, and TechNet. CTA did not respond to a request for comment on this story. So first of all, they're not even mentioning why it's bad. When you actually want to put a point across, rather than just saying that what you do is the best form of technology out there and we don't need anything else, how about finding reasons why AM radio is a problem and should not be there, except for the fact that the only thing that you probably come up with is it's competition for your technology.
They're talking about giving people a choice and letting people make their choice, but they're telling you that you don't need to give them AM as one of those choices.
No.
So it's kind of contradictory.
Yeah.
They want new equipment, they want new technologies so that people will go out and buy new equipment and new technologies. And this is going to give them what they've already had and always had. So no, we want them to have choices, but we don't want them to have that choice.
Yep.
the battle will go on.
Yes.
Pros and cons are coming out, left and right now. So we'll keep you up to date on the story. It's going to be interesting to see where it all ends. On to some shortwave news. And Mickey, you've been checking out some of this situation. There have been a lot of rumors floating around that the BBC relay site, which is located in Singapore, is going to shut down. Now, this came out quite a while ago, but it's stirred up again now, and there seems to be some meat to it this time around. We have a report that was sent through the various networks via the Adventist World Radio Wavescan program, and it was forwarded by Jose Jacob, VU2JOS in Hyderabad, India. We have heard that they want to shut the site down. When it might just happen, we're not sure. The date being kicked around right now, one of them at least, is July the 16th. So that's going to be coming up, another week. Will it happen at that point? We'll just have to kind of wait and see. We are going to post up a list of frequencies that are supposed to be active from the Singapore site, so you can go and check them out. Gilles, you wanted to mention a list that people can find that seems to be a little more accurate at times.
Yeah, because there's the eibispace.de website, which is the one I use the most because it is the most accurate most of the time, but it's a list and it's a little more difficult to go through. But you can search that list if you actually use the find feature of your browser, your web browser, when you're on the site, on the frequency list. You can actually just enter in the search /SNG, which is the Singapore relay, and it actually will pop up 35 times and frequencies where you can listen to the BBC Singapore.
And most of the transmissions from BBC World Service out of Singapore are aimed at Asia in particular. And Mickey, you're located out in Western Canada, and that kind of puts you in the path of some of these transmissions.
That's correct there, Sheldon. The official name was the BBC Far Eastern Relay Station, and I was checking out on Friday morning at around 1600, and 12025 was coming in fair here. Now, there might have been some solar disturbances, as mentioned earlier in the program. And later on at 1700, I checked 11735 in Dari, which was poor, or checked that 12095 Korean, and that was a good signal coming out of Singapore. So interesting, they're going to close this station down. It probably takes up a fair chunk of space on an island that has 728 square kilometers. So I can see why they're shutting it down. Also, the cost of owning a station. And I know BBC doesn't own it now. I forget the company that owns it, but it's probably cheaper to rent from other stations in Asia to get your signal across.
Like you mentioned some of the languages, Korean and Dari. There's also Pashto and English as well, Burmese. Where might they go if they want to still reach those people in those target areas?
I think that Tashkent and there's another station in Central Asia.
You would think they'd want to keep reaching those listeners in those areas. And if they can't do it through Singapore, that is a target area that's been still being broadcast to by quite a few broadcasters.
Well, Tashkent and Uzbekistan put in some pretty good signals into Asia. So those would be two, and probably the UAE too, and Oman. So they still have, a lot of stations they can use, but I'm sure that the city is encroaching around the transmitter site.
And they don't want people too close to those sites either. So
it'll be interesting to see if they replace most of these frequencies with other transmitter sites to continue offering the same level of programming there.
They used to have a station called the BBC East Asia Relay in Hong Kong, which they closed down, when the handover happened. And there was another one in Thailand that they had, and I'm not sure what happened to that one.
Okay, well, we'll post up the list that we have. We'll post a link to the EIBI Space webpage where you can go and check out not just BBC, but any stations registered for shortwave broadcast frequencies. And you can check them out yourself. If it does close down on the 16th of July, you might want to try to log a few of them before that happens. And Mickey, you've received QSLs from the site?
I have in the past. They were a very good verifier, but I'm not sure I've seen anything recently.
All right. Well, let us know what you hear out there. And it would be nice if they did keep it on the air, but hopefully if they do shut it down, they'll replace those broadcasts for listeners in those target areas in Southeast Asia and other parts of Asia in particular. So, one thing we do on this show is we do talk about anything radio related, and this story, Gilles, is radio related. You might not think it is, but this is a perfect example of what goes on and the power of radio and how it's used.
The story title is Radio Amateurs Hack a NASA Spacecraft. This is via spaceweather.com. Ham radio operators are picking up a strong signal from space. It's NASA's Stereo A spacecraft returning home after 17 years. I'm having fun with Stereo A, reports Scott Tilley, a VE7TIL of Roberts Creek, British Columbia. The spacecraft is coming close to Earth this summer, and I can now receive its signal using a small 26-inch dish in my backyard. Here's what he picked up on July 2nd. He caught an X-flare in progress. Naked Eye Sunspot AR3354 was really crackling. Stereo A left Earth on October 26, 2006, launched from Cape Canaveral with its sister ship, Stereo B. Both spacecraft were on a mission to the far side of the sun. Over the years, they would circle behind the sun, beaming images back to Earth so scientists could make 3D models of solar activity. In 2014, Stereo B failed and was not heard again. So Stereo A kept going, and now it's on its way back. Earlier this summer, Tilley began hearing rumors that other radio operators were picking up signals from Stereo A at 8,443.580 megahertz. So that's 8.4 gigahertz. You need something that goes high in frequency. He decided to check it out. The central carrier is very loud, almost 30 dB above the noise. He says, I also noticed data sidebands, which are unusual to see on such a distant object for my small antenna. Stereo A coronagraph images of Mercury passing the sun, eavesdropped by Scott Tilley. At first, the signal was indecipherable, but Tilley found lots of information about its format posted by NASA on public websites. It wasn't a secret. Using a program called SatDump, written by Alain Antoine F4LAU, he successfully demodulated the data. Now Tilley is monitoring data streams from almost all of Stereo A's science instruments, including its extreme ultraviolet imager, 2 coronagraphs, the heliospheric imager, and a solar radio burst receiver. At closest approach on August 17, Stereo A will be only 7.5 million kilometers from Earth. By then, signals from the spacecraft will have more than doubled in strength, making it even easier to hack. What started out as a passing curiosity is now turning into a summer pastime, says Tilley. This is a unique time to play with Stereo A. Hams, would you like to monitor Stereo A? The technical blog post just published by Tilley explains exactly how to do it. And of course, the link will be posted. So you guys that want to try that. So this is interesting. It's really nice to see that, especially, we often have this image of NASA spacecrafts are so secretive and probably are not monitorable from, regular stations on Earth, from amateur radio, And this is an example, that there's a lot of that science out there that's just open to anyone that has the technology available to just receive the signal.
I love the phrase that the Stereo A spacecraft will be 7.5 million kilometers away from Earth, yet the radio signal is being picked up.
Yep.
It's just absolutely mind-boggling that that those signals can be that they can travel that distance, and B, that people could actually go and find them. This is really an interesting story. As you said, it does require some special equipment, and those frequency ranges are not what you're going to find on your average everyday radio. That's for sure.
So we have upcoming ham radio contests.
Yes, we have a couple things coming up for you next weekend. First off, the North American QSO Party, the radio teletype version, 1800 Zulu July 15th to 0559 Zulu July 16th. That's organized by the National Contest Journal. 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10 meters are the bands. And as I said, it is a radio teletype only contest.
We have the CQ Worldwide VHF Contest, 1800 Zulu July 15th to 2100 Zulu July 16th, organized by CQ Magazine. The contest promotes VHF activity on the 6 and 2 meter bands with participation from around the world. Bands 6 meters and 2 meters, the modes phone, SSB, AM, FM, CW or Morse code, and digital modes such as FT8, FT4, MSK 144.
Yeah, that's an event that you can participate in, even if you only have basic VHF, UHF equipment, and you want to participate in a contest. This will give you a chance to test out your equipment and antennas on 6 meters and 2 meters in basically all modes as well.
Last week we talked about the 13 Colonies event that ended this week. And I was able to contact all 13 stations plus the 3 extra stations in one day on Sunday.
Really nice, yeah. And there's a nice certificate available for that as well. And so I hope you're going to be sending off for that.
Oh, yes, I will, absolutely. I want to have it. And it's funny because one of the stations from the UK, the Golf Bravo 13 Charlie Oscar Lima station, when I contacted the station the next morning, I have a message on my YouTube channel saying, I thought that call told me something, VE2ZZI, and the guy actually follows me on my channel. So it's nice.
There you go. Small world.
Yep.
Make use of you're falling behind. You have a bunch of QSLs from these stations. You haven't even opened the envelopes yet. Is that right?
Yeah, I worked all 13 last year, and I haven't even opened the letters yet. You need to go through all this work, and you got to mail off and return postage and everything else, and I just haven't got around to it. But anyway, it was good fun. I worked them all SSB, and it's good fun.
Very good. Yeah, and we'll be telling our listeners in a little bit in the future about a project that you're working on right now with digitizing some really interesting radio recordings that have been made, and we're going to make those hopefully make those available to anybody that wants to go and listen to them. So I think you're having fun with that project.
Absolutely. I've fallen down a rabbit hole I'm never going to get out of.
Yeah, well, we got a taste of one before the show today, and it's pretty amazing stuff that you've got out there. And I think a lot of us have these recordings, and we need to get them in a digital format where they can be stored somewhere that people can go and listen to them. So some of those projects are being worked on out there. So keep your ears open, and we'll maybe have some info on that for you shortly.
Losing another country in Singapore, a lot of this stuff has been long gone.
Yeah. So very new people. There's always new people coming into the listening hobby, and they'd like to listen to some of these things the way they used to be. So there's some really good stuff for you to check out in the future. Going back to listen to stuff that we used to listen to when we were a lot younger than we are today.
Unfortunately, the sand keeps going through the hourglass.
Yeah, we were young and stupid and did stupid things like go out in the middle of nowhere and string out all kinds of weird stuff. And some of us are old and stupid now and still do that sort of thing.
I'm probably still part of that.
The band scans of 60-meter band scans. I mean, it's just full of signals from everywhere. Just fantastic stuff.
Yeah. Anyways. All right. Well, I think we've reached our limit for today.
Pretty much. Yep.
Very good. Thank you, Mickey, for joining us from out in Alberta.
Anytime.
And, we will talk to you again next week on the show. Go check out our Facebook group. Lots of interesting stories posted up there. You can join the group and post your own information, questions, comments, whatever about the show. Look for International Radio Report on Facebook and check out our show anytime on our YouTube channel, also called International Radio Report. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you again next Sunday here on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.